In the beginning, I was the snake in the garden. But before that, in the very beginning, there was nothing but void. There was not even one thought in one mind or anything of any sort at all until finally there was the first thought in the mind of the Absolute, and instantly it was followed up by every thought that ever was or ever could be, an infinitude of dreams shimmering for all time. First there had been thought and mind, in which all other things existed, as the creation of mind. As the first fire was constituted of mind and air itself was created from mind and space plus time. Earth was simply mind plus space. When the first thought became all thoughts, it became heavy, and different densities in matter and state were created. Soul had been created when the thought of goodness met the thought of fullness, and a body was carved from fire of light. The other bit, the one about the earth, its creation, and chaos without form, that story is not as flattering as the one I have to tell for you. You see, I may be a snake, but to be human is worse. I have been that, and I will be that again in time, no doubt. You see, as we all live out all possibilities before we reach our fate, and maybe, if I'm lucky, or maybe you will say unlucky, I will remain a snake for the rest of my days. You see, that to crawl on one's belly is not as bad as being a tantrum-throwing ape. To be cold-blooded suits me. You hot-blooded mammals are all the same. I should know. I've been one. In another lifetime far off, deep in the future, which is the past, if you understand how time works, I was a man. I was many men, and women too, some famous and some unknown. But I can remember one life in particular at this moment. I was a man named Menachem Garamek in Lodz, Poland, and my whole life was a tragedy. My father was the carpenter in the small shtetl, or Jewish ghetto, we lived in. The son of the police chief, Oleski Kalowski, raped and left my pregnant mother for dead in the woods of a Polish forest. It was only by inscrutable fate that Rachel the midwife found my mother as she lay dying. That night Rachel came back to my father with a baby in her arms, but no mother. My first memory in that life was of my father's wretched scream when he was told of his wife's death. It was the sound of a dying man shrieking in despicable agony. It was the sound of a man departed from this world, even though he still remained. My life did not get any better from there. Soon after, my father committed suicide. And later, when I was a young man, soldiers strolled into our village and told us that there were trains that would take us to work camps where we could get jobs. When the trains arrived at the camps, we learned that they were slave labor camps. They worked us as torture, to death, with no food except potato soup. Day by day, my flesh became taut over my bones, the fat disappearing, the muscle disappearing, leaving only bone. I became a thing of bone, whose eyeballs rolled around in their head like loose marbles. I knew that I was already dead, and so I began to trade my soup rations for cigarettes. With the barbed wire electrified surrounding me, I knew there was no escape. My fellow prisoners tried to force me to take a spoonful of their soup, but I refused. That rancid cabbage and potato soup was fouler than could be imagined. Smoking my cigarette in front of the camp, I blew the smoke high into the heavens, along with the remains of my fellow campmates, whose ashes streamed from the smokestacks that blew their remains all day and night. My gut rumbled like a broke-down engine. One day they announced that at lunch we would all be sent to the showers. I knew what it meant. We were to be executed. That morning I sat on the toilet and tried my best, but I could not produce one solid bowel movement. My mind, first of all, was fixated on the concentration camp toilet seat, whose lid was filthy, in such a way that my Jewish bowels restricted and refused to clear themselves. I was about to be removed from this mongrel earth, and all I wanted to do was take a shit. Before I was evacuated from the world, I wanted to evacuate my bowels. So I sat there all morning trying to get what was inside of me out. All I wanted to do was die with clear insides. All I wanted was to feel like I didn't have rocks in my stomach. But no. There was not any luck on my part, and all I could think about as they shaved my head, as the people around me were crying for their last moment on earth, was that I wish I could have taken one good shit before they murdered me. But my Jewish bowels couldn't handle the concentration camp toilets or the potato soup. But that is life. Fortunately, as the snake, I can remember all of my lives, and they are not as painful when I view them as a totality. That life still disturbs me, though. But it was on from that life to the next. Non-sequentially, life continues, and into the next life I would be hurtled to be born as Ben Jorisch. While in my life as Menachem Geramek, I may have been unknown, unloved, and slaughtered in a concentration camp. As Ben Jorisch, I would be a writer and a decadent. My life as Ben Jorisch was no different than my life as the snake in the garden. And in truth, I tell you, though I may not understand, Ben Jorisch is the snake in the garden. This is his story. And of the angel Nina Ramovas, if Ben Jorisch was the snake in the garden, Nina was the apple. Daughter of the famed Soviet novelist Anatoly Romov, their destiny was inseparable from Ben Jorisch. This collection of words is all of their fate, as well as the story of how the moon was artificially constructed and placed in orbit of the Earth. And of course, how could I be so careless as to neglect mentioning the creature watching and waiting in the dark places beyond our vision? Let us not forget the fifth-dimensional mantis who hides in between the spaces that make up reality. In the same way that the hyperdimensional insectoid feeds on the spiritual energy of human beings, so too shall you feed on the words of my tale.
This is the light.